Welcome to a live episode of Surviving the Survivor. We bring you the best guests in all of true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and smash that like button. Here's your host, Emmy Award-winning broadcaster, Joel Waldman.
What's up, SCS Nation, and welcome to another episode of Surviving the Survivor, the podcast that promises to bring you the very best guests in all of true crime. And today, two of the very best, if not the absolute best. Absolute guests make guests absolutely great. I just made that up. It's a play off of Absolute Power. And today you are joined by, or I should say, it's Great Scott, your True Crime Phil. A show so good, it happens live every Friday. And you are joined by Phil Waters, who is a retired homicide detective, over 400 homicides investigated. So when you send me chat or tweet messages that say, what does this guy know? He knows a hell of a lot more than you, and I'll put money on it. And spent 23 years working as a homicide detective. He's now the chairman and CEO, founding partner, equity partner of Kindred Spirits Investigations, which has offices in both Houston, Texas, Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Jerusalem, and now the big island of Hawaii. And he's also a Marine. That was not enough. And then, better known as Scotty the Hottie, but his proper name is Supervisory Agent Scott Duffy to you. He is the head of Wilmington University's Criminal Justice Institute. He is, as I said, a retired FBI supervisory special agent of the Wilmington, Delaware Resident Agency. It's a lot to say. Did fugitive task force stuff, drugs, gangs, bank robberies, homicide. Did that for 20 years. And if that wasn't enough, he was a police officer for 5.5 years in Lower Merion Township. Or is it a township, Scott? I feel like that sounds right.
It is correct.
Oh, thank you. I thought it sounded right. Are Scott and Phil in matching shirts from Charles in Charge? Are you wearing a Hawaiian shirt, Scott? Is that your Phillies Hawaiian shirt, Scott Duffy?
It's not my Philly Hawaiian shirt. I got this on a clearance. It's
you did?
Make-believe Hawaiian, wannabe Hawaiian. That's what it is.
Was that a Tommy Bahama clearance or what?
I think it's a no-name.
A no-name. Phil, you would never wear a no-name generic brand. What's the name of the store you shop at in Hawaii, Phil Waters?
Hilo Hattie's.
Hilo Hattie's. You sound a little distant, Phil. I don't mean actually, like, figuratively, but actually sound. Are you there? Is your microphone near you?
Am I there? Where what?
You sound a little like far away. I mean, I know you are physically far away, but your microphone is where it normally is. Is that correct? There. Oh, there we go. Beautiful. All right. We'll deal with it. That's a little better. Yeah. That's a little better. That's a little better. Yeah.
I will move it a little closer. How about that?
That's wonderful. I have to check in. Is Nugget napping? Yes,
Nugget is right here on the couch napping.
Abby Crossing is my new friend. We were hanging out with her, Scott and myself at CrimeCon, and she says the details and the documentation released with these charges, she's talking about Rex Heuermann, we're going to talk about in a moment, have had me sick all day. They're about as bad as you can get. It's pretty crazy. Look at Becky Ireland. I did not pay her to say this. Joel, I listened to your book twice. I highly recommend it to everyone. Love it. I don't know where I am exactly because over the last 3 weeks, I was in New Jersey, New York, Boston, back to New York, Toronto, Philadelphia, where I knew exactly where I was because I had Scott Duffy. Then I went to Nashville for CrimeCon, and Carm and I just got back this afternoon from Tallahassee. Couple quick shout outs. Tallahassee on Wednesday. By the way, the people of Tallahassee are some of the nicest people you will ever meet. As they say, as you go further north in Florida, it becomes more southern. They say y'all up there, and the people are actually nice. Really, really nice. So they, on Wednesday night, they honored Carm at a dinner at a place called Food Glorious Food, which has been around in Tallahassee for over 40 years. an amazing restaurant, Food Glorious Food, and the organization was the Holocaust Education Resource Council, and they are a nonprofit, and they raise money to teach teachers how to teach the Holocaust. I thought it was a very cool group. It is Jewish people and non-Jewish people all part of this organization to make sure that young kids know their history. Phil Waters, you are a history buff. This is important, is it not?
Oh, it is.
Hmm.
That is an historical event that is not only interesting and very defining in terms of man's history, but it also relates to biblical history. So, that's that's a moment in time that everyone needs to understand the truth about what happened there.
By the way, this whole time, for the last, 2 years that we've been doing true crime, we had to push a single button to also stream on Facebook. And we're actually doing that right now. And I think we could even do it on Instagram. The COE playing naive, I guess. Like she didn't know. I think she did know, but she was just too lazy to click that one extra button. We have one viewer on Facebook. I love it. It's one viewer more than we had before we were on Facebook. But anyway, we're streaming on Facebook if that's easier for some people. And I think we can stream on Instagram as well. The other shout out for Tallahassee was we had a book signing at a store called Hearth and Soul in the heart and soul of Tallahassee. It's called Hearth and Soul, one of the coolest shops. Everything in the store is purchasable. They've got tables and shirts and clothing. And if you like the coffee table, you can buy it. And everything is super cool. And they sell books. And we had the biggest crowd, I think, of any of our stops, well over 100 people there. It was amazing. People took Carm and myself out to dinner. It was an amazing time. And I highly recommend Tallahassee. Carm liked it so much, she picked up one of those real estate magazines and was looking at home. So instead of moving to the Big Island, Carm is thinking of moving up north to Tallahassee. That's how much she liked it. But a huge shout out to Tallahassee for that. And outside of that, I am literally just limping into the weekend. I am in a weird mood, but probably you know what, Phil? I just want to get your take on this real quick. So I've got these ever since I started doing Karen Reed. I've got I don't know the technical term for this, but I will just call them morons who are harassing me on Twitter. And part of their spiel is that I am exploiting my mother by telling her Holocaust story, which I told them to buzz off. But what I really want to do is jump through Twitter, through the little cables, and come out the other end and strangle them to death and get away with it. But because of great detectives like yourself in this country, I would never do that. But Phil Waters, this is a very important story on a serious note. And I'm actually proud of myself. I never say that I had the ability and wherewithal to write this book. This will now live on in history for my children and my children's children. I just wanted to get your response to that I've got these trolls telling me this, so I want to punch in the face.
My response to that is you need to have my attitude toward those types of people.
Please tell me.
And in fact, and I don't say this to be boastful or anything else, but I know for whom which I need to be right with, and I need to do those things and take those actions and reflect those feelings to the right people in my life and the Lord of my life, and that's who I try to do the right things for. So when these other people that want to criticize and want to try to diminish and disparage and insult those things that I know are truth and that are right, and that I'm not going to compromise my integrity to satisfy somebody else's ego. Put it this way, and I'm sure this will get a whole bunch of comments, but I don't care what they think.
I love that.
So as I go through life, not caring about what those people think, it enriches my life in a much better way, because I know that the people that I care about and the God that I serve, they're being pleased by the actions and decisions that I make that are in other people's best interest, not necessarily my own. So if, I'll get this will get them going. So in the book of Micah, chapter 6, I think it's verse 8, we are told that what's the measure of a man? And that is to seek justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with his God. And that's what I have tried to do. That is one of my life verses, and I'm sticking with it. So all these other people that want to criticize, and I pray for those people every day. I did this morning, and right before we got on the air. And so I would just, I don't know that I feel sorry for them, but I'm just a little amazed at the capacity of people that really don't have any joy in their life. They don't have any sense of humor. They're angry all the time. They're judgmental. And then they criticize people or accuse people of doing the very thing that they do on a daily basis. So, again, you just need to have Phil's attitude and not give a flying crap about what these people think.
Hashtag Phil's attitude and hashtag not give a flying crap. Fil and Scott are way too intellectual to be wasting their time in that cesspool that is X, formerly Twitter. Misdemeanor OG, we met her at Crime Con. She's from Strong Island. We're talking about Strong Island today in relation to accused Long Island serial killer Rex Heuermann, and she's awesome. Misdemeanor OG reminds me of a Jersey girl, even though she's a mature woman. She's got the attitude. And she says, is that a cardboard cutout of Scott? Scott Duffy, please say something. You're in your Hawaiian shirt at the Jersey Shore. It's not the beach. It's not the shoreline. It's not whatever. It's the Jersey Shore. How is it there, Scott? Please engage in conversation so we can get the ratio up and right here.
Yeah, it is the Jersey Shore. It's beautiful down here. Probably upper 70s, low humidity, plenty of sunshine. A lot of my neighbors are out cleaning up their yards and, trying to get them to come over and do my yard. It wasn't working, but it's beautiful out there. No, and thinking of cardboard cutouts, there were plenty of them at CrimeCon, and I was trying to snap pictures with all the different cutouts.
By the way, the minute we unpacked for CrimeCon, the COE looked at me and I knew what she was going to say. She said, we forgot Carm. We should have, from now on, we bring cardboard cutout Carm everywhere we go. Scott is at his shore house in Phil's in Hawaii. That's how you know it's summer. All is right in the world. Look at this. Kim DeLorme, we met in Hawaii. Whoops, sorry about that, analytical. Finally get to catch a live. It was so nice and exciting to meet you and your beautiful mom, Carm, in Toronto. Likewise, Kim was sitting in the front row, and Analytical Blarney gifting one Surviving the Survivor membership. And by the way, for all those wondering, tomorrow, my oldest, Vita Aaliyah, she goes from 9 to 10, double digits. I think she's a little anxious because she's getting up there. Scott Duffy, what advice would you give a 9-year-old turning 10 in this day and age? She might be listening. She might be watching.
First of all, happy birthday. What a wonderful,
thank you.
Wonderful month of June.
Well, my wife gave me an early birthday gift. She had the party last night because all the kids are going off to summer camp. And so when I was in Tallahassee, they did the sleepover and I missed it. I love my daughter, but I prefer not to hang out with 20 screaming kids. And I missed all that. So I thank you to COE. But so what advice do you give a 9-year-old turning 10? She's having some trepidation about the double digits, Scott.
Ooh, yeah, getting old. Right. It's tough getting old. That's what I would say. Going from the single digits to the double digits. 10, it's a beautiful age, beautiful number. Enjoy the last few hours of 9 because you'll never see it again. That's
and Phil Waters. By the way, it's amazing to have Scott Duffy with me. I felt a little less safe in Tallahassee because everyone knows I need security. Oh, I forgot to tell you the most important thing, but I do need security. We are that big now. And when I was in Nashville, I had Scott as my body man. I felt a little naked, if you will, in Tallahassee. But listen to this, Phil and Scott. Carm wanted to see the Capitol because that is Tallahassee is the state capital of Florida. And there's actually a Capitol dome. I know Phil Waters would love this. We were reading about the history of the state capitol, formed in yada, yada year, et cetera, et cetera. But we ordered an Uber to go to the book signing, and we hop in the car, and I thought it was a Scott Duffy move where someone paid the Uber driver, and he's like, I can't believe it's you guys. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, it's Joel and Carm. It's like, I love your podcast. It was the first time ever in the wild that we were recognized. So it was shout out to John, the Uber driver. And John, by the way, if you're watching, I accidentally hit, I didn't know what I was doing, and I gave you a lower tip than I wanted to. So I'm going to try to figure out later how to give you a bigger tip. But we invited him to the book signing, and he came, and he was a hit, and it was awesome. And it was awesome to see you, Bonnie Heisen Facemeyer. Look at this. Hi, Joel and Scott from Greg and Bonnie in Ocean County, New Jersey. Great seeing you in Nashville. Awesome to see everybody there.
That's Ocean City.
Ocean City. I'm sorry. Did I say Ocean County?
Mm-hmm.
Ocean City. My bad. Look at Scott Duffy correcting me. So there we are. We should probably get into some crime since we're 17 minutes in. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, I know these guys are going to say nothing surprises them, but here we go. Sandra Costilla and Jessica Taylor. They are the two newest victims. Oh, the bozo horn is trying to go off.
Sorry. Let me fix that.
No, it's all good, Phil. Wouldn't be a show without a dog barking or.
Well, no, I did it on my phone, and I'm on my MacBook, and I forgot to change it on the MacBook.
It's always good. Does it go off? Does your Ferrari have a bozo horn, Phil? It would be amazing if you got your guy in Houston to customize your Ferrari horn to be a bozo horn. That'd be
fun. No, it's got the little Italian horn that it has is quite sufficient. It sounds different. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about this sicko today. His name is Rex Heuermann, this accused sicko. The Gilgo Four, they are Megan Waterman, Melissa Barthelemy, Amber Costello, and Maureen Brainerd Barnes. Maureen Brainerd Barnes was a prime suspect for some time. It was a few months back that they actually linked her to Rex Heuermann. Well, now he's charged. He was indicted just yesterday in 2 additional women's murders. And that is, you're looking at the 2 women here, Jessica Taylor and Sandra Costilla. Sandra Castillo's body, it's interesting to point out, was found in the Hamptons. She was not originally, no one thought she was a victim of Rex Heuermann's, but we'll get to how they connected them in a little bit. Jessica Taylor on the right, she disappears in 2003, but Sandra Costilla, she was killed in 1993. Her remains, as I said, were actually found in North Sea. That's a town in the town of Southampton. But Phil Waters, what this does now is it broadly expands the timeline. They originally said Rex Heuermann was committing these crimes going back to the early 2000s. but this woman was murdered in 1993. I mean, outside of the obvious, which is he started allegedly murdering much earlier. What does this say to you as a veteran homicide detective? Oh, you're muted now. And Phil, you're muted, and you can never be muted because we have to hear you speak. Can I unmute you? No, I cannot. Only you can unmute yourself, Phil. A muted Phil is like a muted Carm. It just doesn't make any sense. Phil can't unmute himself now. You got to hit the mute button, Phil.
I'm on, Phil.
He's yelling at us, but Phil, you got to unmute. There we go.
Here we go.
There we go.
Okay. Here we go.
Unmute.
I'm so, this is all, I don't even know how that happened. But anyway.
When you and Carm say nothing, I literally get panicked. It's very frightening to me, but go on.
Well, so now in the, we're trying to get that resolved. I have forgotten what the question was. So what?
So now we're looking at his victim, Sandra.
Maybe you should go to Scott.
Sandra Costilla is murdered in 93, and they are linking her to Rex Heuermann. This expands the timeline significantly. I mean, does it tell us anything else beyond the fact that he started murdering early? If you're a homicide detective, which you are, how does this change a Nugget? Keep it down there.
Well, Nugget's on the alert. She's seen something that she's not happy with, and she's out correcting it at this moment. But
she sounds vicious. But so, I mean, if you're the lead investigator, now you've got him linked to a 1993 murder. How does this change the course of your investigation?
I don't know that it changes the course of it. I think this is the type of investigation that is going to result in just what we're seeing here. So this investigation is going to continue just because of the nature of it. It's going to continue to expand. So I don't see it changing the dynamic about what the detectives are doing. They are taking and letting the evidence lead them where they need to be. So as each one of these new revelations starts to occur, it's just going to give a better idea as to the scope of the evil that this evildoer perpetrated on a whole host of victims. So the numbers are only going to grow.
COE, let's get on this immediately. By the way, who's this? This is Bodine, 62. Listen to your book on Audible. Thank you so much. And she's giving it for birthday gifts. Biggest gift you can give me is to give it as a gift or share with a friend to get the word out there. Run in the world. COE, the pic you have for your channel, Joel, doesn't look like you. Much more handsome. You should change. It must be my goofy glasses that Phil makes fun of. And look at this. We had one. We now have 4 viewers on Facebook. So those are 4 more COE than we didn't have before. And Linda Moan, Viva la Vida, baby. So there you go. Scott Duffy, to you, before we move on from this point, because this was the things that we're about to, by the way, it's pretty disturbing. So I'm warning everyone in advance. If you're having a tough day and you don't want to hear sad, crazy stuff about from a serial killer's mind, you might want to check out some cartoons or something, because this is going to get a little dark in a couple minutes. But Scott Duffy, does anything about a serial killer surprise you before I go any further? You seem unfazed, you and Phil, by just about everything. And I will reveal some stuff that you may not know in a little bit. But are you, in other words, when I say serial killer, are you expecting anything and everything from that?
I think there's been enough serial killers that I have heard about, read about, that I don't think anything would faze me of what they're capable of, what they do, and often the different components that they employ in their murdering. So far, what I've seen and heard from what is alleged that Rex has done to these beautiful women, people, these just horrible, tragic, disgusting acts. It doesn't faze me as serial killers have taken that, you know, Americana ride. And I would say the world. I mean, there are some international fascinating serial killers throughout the world, but it is, I will say, I think, not surprised,
Scott
but
Duffy, real quick, I just want to interrupt to tell you that in reference to the Dan Markel murder, I started by saying it's a fascinating case. And the minute that you just used the word fascinating, but the minute I said that, Nancy Grace goes, hold up. Wait, how dare you use the word fascinating? These are pure.
yeah,
But it is fascinating, I think.
they are
So go ahead.
fascinating. They're fascinating because and just to make that defense that nobody would care. We're always taken back by, and I saw one of the comments that you're a household individual, a professional, somebody who's your next door neighbor, somebody who perhaps a relative or somebody you worked with, and then all of a sudden it's these explosion of facts when an arrest is made. So how could they not be fascinating? They're not. They're not. I would say fascinating in the sense that it captures people's attention because we're each and every day we're um, we're taken back by what people do to other people, and it's at having interviewed so many different types of people throughout my career. I, I just accept the fact that people are willing to go as far as their imagination will take them. And the imagination can be very scary.
That's very well put. And I think that is true. And some imaginations are extremely dark. This has to be a troll from Asa Jensen. Don't disparage X, best source of, it is a great source of news. I will give you that. Truth, I don't know. Best source of news and truth on earth. Crazy people are everywhere, and I see less of them on X. And I just hope Asa, for our sake, that you're joking, because it's a cesspool of crazy. You can't mute Phil into a corner. No, you cannot. So, Mary N says, and this is interesting, I cannot accept how an average, odd, narcissistic family man turns out to be a serial killer. But one thing you learn from Scott and Phil is that you can never judge a book by its cover. And this big book is full of crazy. So, Phil Waters, one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing that came out of this indictment is what the prosecutor is calling planning docs that Rex Heuermann used in the killings and disposal of his victims. It contained headings or headlines and columns such as, and I'm quoting here, supplies and problems to help him avoid detection by changing car tires, burning gloves, destroying photos of victims, concocting alibis, and packaging, quote unquote, packaging bodies for transport. They found this, if you guys will recall, they were back in the basement. They did recently, and they said that this was discovered on a laptop that they found in the basement that he tried to wipe clean. But with digital forensics today, they were able to pull this stuff up, Phil. But you're the homicide detective, and now you get documentation off of a computer that's literally a checklist for murder. What does this tell you, Phil?
Another piece of the puzzle. Look, what folks must understand about people like this this is what is foremost on their mind. When I talk about this, I'm talking about finding a target, seeking them out, and then destroying them. This is what this type of individual thinks about every moment of the day. It's a constant on the watch for the next victim. And in doing so, he starts to perfect his craft. So he's making notes. I mean, think about what they do, what they like doing, what they enjoy doing, and how they try to take that aspect of their life and do things that make it even better. So you may physically write a list out, or you may just make mental notes on how to make this aspect of your life better and to get more out of it. So while when I do stuff like that, I'm thinking about what can I do to one of my cars? What can I do to the places where we live to make it a more enjoyable place, and so forth and so on. So, but in a guy like this, he's thinking about what can I do that will make this perversion better for me? What can I do to make sure that when I carry it out, how do I remove myself from it in terms of evidence, in terms of people who may have seen me, in terms of the people that I'm doing it to? So how do I separate myself from all of that? How do I dispose of the victim once I've done what I've done? And if things start to work, then he will stick with that. But then he's always thinking about building a better mousetrap and going around and picking victims and destroying their lives. So this doesn't surprise me at all that this is the kind of attitude this guy has, and that they're finding these kinds of things. If you're saying that they found this on a laptop and he tried to delete that stuff from the laptop, I tell you, unless you do a complete re-imaging, and I'm not even sure then, I'm not a computer guy, but unless you do a complete re-imaging of a laptop, of a piece of equipment like that, there's always going to be something on it. They're going to find something on it. So, not surprised. I mean, I know probably we get tired of hearing that. But
yeah. Well, Phil, Phil Waters, does your detective gut tell you that there was a murder before 1993? Do you think it goes back further? He's 60 years old. I can't do the math that quickly, but they say they start in their early 20s. That would put it into the 1980s. Did your gut tell you that we're going to find other cases earlier on?
Well, I don't know that my gut tells me that. I would tell you that the evidence we're seeing now would tend me to lean that way, that we're going to start to find that he started this activity much earlier than what was believed. And that won't surprise me at all. These guys, these guys that are serial killers, this starts way in the past. This is something that it doesn't just happen in a vacuum. They don't decide one day, I'm going to go out and start doing this. So they start killing of animals, harming people, so on and forth and so on. It's a series of events that builds up to ultimately their ultimate thrill. So I think the evidence is starting to direct the detectives that this particular suspect has started this activity much earlier than what was first thought.
Phil raises an amazing point. I mean, I'm a diehard with Dr. G Explains. We text each other about mixed martial arts, about the UFC. Scott Duffy's a Phillies fan. Phil's a Ferrari fan. So all these passions that different people have, this is a serial killer's passion. Might be crocheting. Who knows what it is? But this is their passion. This is what they think about and plan for, constantly in their minds, and then they carry it out. This is what we know so far, Scott Duffy. 1993 death of Sandra Costilla. Costilla makes her the earliest known victim now. Earlier than police previously thought, she was found in the woods, and that was in Southampton, not Gilgo Beach, by hunters. Jessica Taylor disappeared in July 2003. Her remains are discovered in 2 different locations. A dog walker found her body. This is tough, everyone. So if you're listening, earmuffs, as they say. Find her, let's put it this way, her body with her head no longer on it and her limbs or arms no longer on it in a wooded area. 2011, 8 years later, they found more parts of her skull, hands, and forearm, found less than 1 mile from where the Gilgo 4 were all found. And here we go, Scott Duffy. The common denominator, male hairs found on the remains of both Costilla and Taylor were tested and found a likely DNA match to Heuermann. Ray Tierney, the prosecutor in Suffolk County, he held a press conference. He said this was, quote unquote, meticulously planned, and he executed 6 separate murders. He's talking about the Gilgo 4 too. Scott Duffy, you see language that a hair was found on or near the vicinity of both victims to a DNA profile that is a likely match to Rex Heuermann. How unlikely is it that it's his? In other words, is it all but certain that hair has to be him when they say a likely match? Could it be any? I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, there's a fractiontilla of a percent that it could be someone else. Is that right? But almost certainly his.
Yeah, not being the DNA expert, but having been an investigator, having employed the work of some great DNA experts in the FBI lab and our local state DNA lab, it's DNA is a damning piece of evidence. But when it starts to get into different aspects of DNA, and I think you have some experts out there in the audience, that I know there are different levels of testing. Hair, might have this, and then of course you'll have touch DNA, which is kind of coming on scene. The FBI lab, when I visited it back in 2016, 17, it was staying away from touch DNA as it did more research, as any good lab will research and then figure out about its scientific veracity in order to use it for court, right? So like polygraphs, they're great tools, but never to be admitted into court. So, but DNA is a fantastic tool. It's coming a long way. It almost seems like there's something new that DNA experts are putting into the work of investigators and prosecution and so forth. So when I see that, likely, I'd like to know a little bit more of exactly what it is. I know you can match up fibers. I know you can match up hair. And then of course, if it's a root, that's even better. So it's good. And I think as they are testing it, there will be additional tests. By the time court comes around, there will be additional, I would say, processes that make it nobody else. Like I've seen it where 1 in a trillion or 8 trillion or so forth, which is pretty damning evidence that the person that they tested against and comes back a match, that it is a match.
By the way, shout out to both Analytical Blarney, who gifted a membership. I see her talking to Olive Green, and she's saying where in Jersey. But what's funny, Scott Duffy, Olive Green comes to us from Jersey, which is an island off of the UK. She sent me photos. It's incredibly beautiful. It looks like a James Bond movie, like a little European town on a little island off the UK where you see Bond in his little car flying, zipping around the island. So it ain't like our Jersey, Scott Duffy. And one day we've got to visit Jersey in the UK. These pretzels making me thirsty. Very good title there for a name, and I love it. These pretzels making me thirsty. Phil Waters, I can't help but think of you, not because of the name, but because of this question. Does anyone know what year Rex Heuermann's parents died, the brother moved away, etc.? What would intrigue me so much, Phil Waters, and I don't know if it would with you, would to really take a deep dive into Rex Heuermann's past, as a child growing up. Do you believe that most of these serial killers, if not all, are either abused in some fashion, mentally abused, physically abused, or engage, are exposed to some sort of trauma that triggers this? I don't know enough about the study of serial killers, and I know you're not Ann Burgess, who studies this for a living, but if you went into his family history, do you think that you would find that he endured some kind of trauma? I'm not making excuses for him, but just wondering if this is what put him on this path, maybe.
Well, it's always an interest. And I did the same thing. I'm sure they're doing psychological autopsies on this character. And you want to know those things. You want to go back into their history. You want to find out what their upbringing was about, because you want to see if you find any indicators that has brought them to where they are today. So that is of interest to the investigation, because for one thing, you want to be prepared for a possible defense, which is going to be, when I was a little kid, something happened, and my mom beat me with a 3-sided ruler before she went out to work the streets. Some weird thing going on there, that because most of these, what I've read is most of these folks are prostitutes. So there's got to have been something that occurred as he's growing up and maturing that has led him to at least the targets. And then you're going to find out possibly what it is that's led him to be so angry and so evil that he needs to go out and over again satisfy whatever that need is within him to possibly punish a person or a situation over and over again. And then, at some point in time, this is the difference between at least in my simple definition, this is the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath. A sociopath will go out and commit a murder or any other violent crime and feel like they're justified in doing it. The psychopath, on the other hand, will go out and commit sociopathic acts but enjoy what they're doing. So for me, that's the dividing line between a kind of your typical defined murderer who goes out in the course of let's just say goes out in a series of aggravated robberies and murders 3 people, which I had a case like that. That's the only reason I'm bringing it up, and does that. So in the sense that they're a serial killer, yes, they are, but they're a sociopath going out and justifying in their own minds and they were killing convenience store people, owners of convenience stores, and they felt justified in doing what they were doing. But somebody like this, or a Ted Bundy, some of our more well-known serial killers, they enjoy every aspect of what they're doing. They enjoy the preparation. They enjoy the searching for the prey. They enjoy the execution of the act, and they enjoy covering it up and seeing if they can continue to get away with it. So this brings them a sense of satisfaction. So the psychopaths enjoy what they're doing, and I have no doubt that this guy is in the same category.
Scott Duffy, this is an interesting comment to me for a variety of reasons, but it's from La Mesa up in Toronto, who I wish I got to meet. But she says, Joel, I'm happy to be part of a channel and chat that refuses to victim blame and to shame women and men who engage in any form of work, because sex work is real work. These humans deserve justice. Scott Duffy, as part of your oath that you took when you were sworn in as an FBI agent, you had to protect and serve, and that includes all people in society, even people on the fringes of society. Just because someone is a sex worker, and these women collectively all were, as far as we know, you can't just cast them aside and say, oh, they were prostitutes for a living. You've got to take these cases as seriously as you do as if the CEO of ExxonMobil is murdered, right? I mean, every human life is valuable. How would you keep that focus when you were at the agency? If it was someone who is from a less privileged background, someone who might not have, the loving family that other people have, how would you know to keep your focus on those people the same as other people?
Yeah, for me personally, and I think I can speak for, if not 100%, definitely the majority in law enforcement, that especially whatever it is that society wants to call prostitute, sex worker, somebody who's working the streets, absolutely, they are absolutely vulnerable people, and they've always had a special place in my heart because of that vulnerability. I've spoken to them many different times during stings that I would join with my local and state partners, because we would then interview them in hopes of finding other crimes that are going around. And so a very wealth of information. I'll even say, and this might get somebody going too, but in my faith, in the Catholic Church, the one of the earliest saints that we have is Mary Magdalene, and Mary Magdalene was well known to have worked the streets. She was early, so it goes back to the beginning of time, and a very, and then to me, I think what helped me in my faith is to see that somebody like my Lord treated Mary Magdalene, put her on a pedestal. And so when you have somebody who raises somebody like that up, I learned that from early childhood. It rang with me, stayed with me. And then when I got into law enforcement, anytime I came across somebody local or federally who was working the streets, I saw them absolutely as a very precious human being. So when I hear this, yes, they are very vulnerable. And the fact, I would even go to say that the person who killed these victims, tortured them, and done all sorts of things that are inhuman, that perhaps he was hoping they would be forgotten and not pursued. And so I enjoy the fact that law enforcement is going years before 1993 in hopes of putting together additional victims to ensure, that their case is rock solid and that no victim is left unnamed. So, absolutely, I'm glad to see that comment in there. That's
Yeah. And we have two more names now, Sandra Costilla and Jessica Taylor. If you're just joining, Sandra Costilla is connected to Rex Heuermann. She was murdered back in 93. So that's 31 years ago, if I'm doing the math right. And some people in the chat are saying this is, I guess, armchair detectives who think that Rex could have 30 or 40 women out there. We just don't know, but it goes back, and now we have 6 who they are definitively linking him to. Shout out to Helen coming to us from the future in Australia, where it is 7 a.m. on Saturday, and Mabel in the UK, a name that is near and dear to my heart because of my beloved Mabel Rose, who almost made it to 17. And here we go with Abby Crossing again, a new friend. Sadly, Phil, I'm not surprised that his wife is still visiting him weekly, complete denial. So, Phil, I'm curious to get your reaction to this. And the New York Post just ran a story that his own children are standing by his side. Does this surprise you? I mean, it's got to be one of the most disturbing, surreal, jolting, convoluted, discombobulating things in the world to find out that your own father / husband is a serial killer. And look, I saw Kerry Rawson at CrimeCon. I really love Kerry, but she's very open about being traumatized. She goes to trauma therapy for it. I don't think she'll ever be able to fully get over it. But what about this notion, Phil Waters, that the wife is visiting him regularly and the children, I don't know that they're visiting, but they're openly supporting him? What does this tell you?
Well, I don't find this to be unusual. Because they know, and let's just presume for a moment here that the wife is not involved. Mm-hmm. They know him as they know him. They don't know him as a purported serial killer. They don't know him as that person. They know him as their father. She knows him as her husband. So that's the world they're in. And until there comes a point in time that, whether it's trial or a plea, whatever it is, that shows that he is in fact the person that was committing these murders, they're going to maintain their support and love for him. And even after that.
Phil, you just muted yourself. I
didn't do anything. I'm not sure why it's doing that.
That's interesting.
So what I would say, maybe that's one of these trolls that's hacked into my.
It's possible. Maybe Nugget stepping on a wire. I don't know.
No. Nugget's over here on the couch on her pillow. But anyway, so the bottom line is they know him as they know him. This persona that's now been revealed, they don't know that person. And even if it goes to a trial, even if he's convicted, even if it is proven by the evidence that he has murdered multiple people under the same types of people, under the same set of circumstances, and put them in the same place, dispose of them the same way, so forth and so on, they still, and I don't see this as a negative, they're still going to love their father as the man that they knew, and they're going to support him. And people need to be careful about how they interpret that word support. Because look, if one of my children had gone and done something that was egregiously wrong, And I knew they did it. The evidence led that direction, so forth and so on. I would continue to love them, and I would continue to support them in the sense that they know that I'm there. They know that I will be there for them, but they're still going to be held accountable for what they did. So I don't find this to be strange. I don't find it to be something that people should be looking at and going, "Oh my gosh, how can they do that?" Now, some people have the opposite decision they make. They immediately, whoever they're close to, goes out and does something horrific, and they immediately divest themselves of that relationship. So I don't find this to be odd at all, and we see this a lot with cases involving the husband goes out and does something to the wife. All of a sudden she disappears. All the evidence points to the father having done it. And then you have the children that are all in support of the father. That no, he didn't do it, couldn't possibly have done it, so forth and so on. And then sometimes you have a division in the family where you have one of the kids will say, "Yep, Dad did it. I don't want anything to do with him anymore." And then the other one says, "No, wait a minute. He didn't do it. I'm going to continue to be there at his side, blah, blah, blah." And and kind of in Carrie's case, that's been I know when I spoke with her at CrimeCon last year, she's very, understandably, she's very conflicted about how she feels about her father because of what he did, and when she finds out things that he was doing and got pictures of her in, I think, a couple of pictures in the midst of the place where he was committing some of these murders, that's going to traumatize most people. But then the other side of that coin is, at least my discussion with her, she still loves her dad, because she knows her dad as her dad, not as BTK. So it's a horrible conundrum for a person to have to go through this kind of thing. And then you have the critics that will say, "Why are you supporting him? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Yeah, if it were me, blah, 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 blah." Well, it's not you. So just shut up and let these people try to mend their lives.
Yeah.
So
yeah. I agree with you. We have Collier Landry on our show. I haven't had him on in a while, but his dad convicted of murdering his own mother, and he still says he loves his dad. He's even visited him in prison, but he says his dad is a total narcissist, sociopath, psychopath. But it's still his father. And again, I agree with Phil. Unless it's your parent, there's absolutely no way to know how you're going to respond to that situation. I'm sure there are people that would never talk to their parent again or hate them, but I don't think we can judge how the family is reacting here. There are a lot of people who are suspicious of Rex's wife here, but that's going to have to be up to law enforcement. But Scott Duffy from Leo Wren, wow, to find a hair 20 years later. Take us inside baseball here, Scott Duffy. Something had to prompt them to go look at the evidence box from Sandra Costilla, and in there had to be a hair sitting in a Ziploc bag. It wasn't like they just found this hair. It's not like 20 years later, the hair had to be part of this evidence package. Explain that. What do you think happened here? How did they circle back to pull this hair from this evidence box to then make this determination?
So kudos to law enforcement for however they collected and recovered and conducted great crime scene security, that ultimately you establish a crime scene, right? And then you're not just collecting things and throwing it into a box, a bag, a cup, or whatever, however you're collecting. It is painstaking. and for a law enforcement, for a police department and a crime scene unit, well-trained individuals that constantly bettering themselves with regards to the latest and greatest, whatever their department could give them in resources, um, to get better at their craft. And there are, I've met some great crime scene investigators, and they are fantastic and they are passionate. So it's you are not just securing, for example, here, some bones, human remains in a shallow grave or wherever these remains are found, and you, as a crime scene investigator, starting large, right? And then deciding, okay, we can go hone in, and everything is collected. Everything, it's they're looking into the future. And just think about 1993, think about whatever else that bones that they may have sitting in an evidence shelf that are going to go back, and they're going to be able to re-look at some of these evidence boxes that are just waiting for that right detective to come and say, let's take a look at this one. And then whatever it is, hair, fiber, clothing, that are just well preserved because a detective has said, maybe we don't have the means now, but somewhere in the future, this will mean something. And that's just fantastic, for investigators to have that wherewithal. And now it's sitting, waiting. And now you're in 2024, where um, science and law and crime scene detectives are just able to come together with a whole new resource database, and say, let's do one and one, let's do comparisons, let's DNA, whatever it else that is possible to, and just looking at technology, looking at what they're able to find, the um, the type of detailed plans that Rex had on his computer, and some other digital files that they were able to uncover. Um, So that's ultimately what it is, when a crime scene is determined to be a crime scene, and the investigators collect everything and have the wherewithal to say, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to collect it, preserve it, and then let an expert tell me what it is, or tell me what the value is, as opposed to discarding and forever losing a forensic piece of evidence. So all these things, there's no doubt in my mind that, you know, 4 when this first broke, and 6 today, and I don't think this is over. And hair,
Yeah.
fiber, DNA are going to be those pieces that continue to put this puzzle together.
Yeah, I think it's far from over. Laura Lee Potvin, shout out to her. She's been with the channel for 7 months. I see her anniversary up here. Phil Waters from Jerry Michael. This is a practical question that you can answer. So will finding more bodies delay the start of Rex Heuermann's trial, if in fact it goes to trial? And will the state delay to make sure all victims are found that he may be tied to? I mean, they could be finding victims for the next 30 years here, for all we know. But what about, now he's linked. Someone asked, now, shout out to Real Happy, who we met at CrimeCon too. But now they've got 6 victims linked to him. We know there were 11 sets of, body parts found on Gilgo Beach. One of these women is not from Gilgo, so that would put it at 12. But to answer the question, Phil, does this delay the start of a potential trial now?
Well, that's a great question. And I would think that it will, because the prosecutors want to have all they can get. In a case like this, it's going to be complicated, that is expanding. I don't see them running to a trial before this is finally, that they can go far back as they can go and tie as many victims to this guy as they can. And the other side of this may be, look, this may end up being a bargaining chip. So if he decides that he's going to own up to this thing in some way, as a sudden dose of conscience or whatever it is that leads to this possibility, is that, look, tell us when you started and let's walk through all the victims, because this has been done before with serial killers, where they've agreed to talk about all the ones that they've killed and recovered some bodies, some of these things. So, and sometimes get some victims identified that weren't before, people that were off the radar completely, that this person may have murdered. So a lot of moving parts here, and it would not surprise me at all that if they even had a time frame that they're thinking of, that is going to push it.
Phil, let me ask you a dumb question. It came up in the chat, and I was thinking the same thing. Are there moments in a serial killer's life between kills, let's say, where he's sitting at a diner thinking to himself, I'm an awful person. I just can't control it. It's a compulsion, and I just have to do it. But do you think there's I don't know what just happened to the graphics, but do you think there's a realization that what they're doing is horrific, or they just don't see that part of it either?
Oh, I think that's reasonable. I don't find that to be.
By the way, real quick, I'll tell you what just happened. I guarantee it. The COE never charges her computer. She inputs all the graphics, and this is how we live our life. Her cell phone is perpetually on 1%, and she controls the graphics and the movement here. So now we're going to stare at a black hole till the COE. Right now, she's screaming to the 3 kids, "Where's my charger? Where's my charger?" Every day, "Where's my phone? Where's my charger? Where are my keys?" That is the common refrain. So that's what's going on right now. I just wanted to fill in the rest of the audience. This is my life every single day. Love the COE. It is never going to change. Go ahead, Phil. I did not mean to interrupt. Enjoy the black hole.
Oh, well, of course. And I was just saying that it's reasonable to think that at some point, maybe several times, this person like him sits down and reflects on what they're doing and goes, man, I messed up, but then looks up and the waitress comes to the table, or he goes out and runs into another prostitute and says, time to go to work. The reflection doesn't last long, and there's certainly no positive results to that. If they were truly reflecting on themselves and wanting to change that, they would walk down to the police department and say, hey, look, I'm a serial killer, and I'll take you to all the bodies.
Phil, I'm not even going to ask you because I know your wife is responsible. And Scott, I know yours is too. But Scott, do you ever get the where are my keys? I've lost my phone. Is your wife responsible is what I'm asking you, Scott Duffy.
Of course.
She is.
Just like this. Yeah.
What's amazing is I mean, it's not even a question. I mean, she's amazing with our kids. I trust her. It's just that she literally, I mean, her phone is always on 1%. Like I just couldn't, it gives me anxiety to think about that. I've always got my phone properly. Phil Waters, I know for 1,000%, your phone will never go below, let's say 40%. You're charging that phone, right, Phil?
Well, it's charging right now, as a matter of fact, even as we speak. So
yeah,
I do try to, yeah.
Wildfire says ADHD is a bitch and I lose things a lot. Look at them. They're all coming to her defense now. She's busy, Joel. Right now, she's busy running around the house looking for a charger. It'll be interesting to see if she finds it by the time the show is over. By the way, this happens every time we fly. I have seen in real life, Phil and Scott, I have seen the COE talk her way onto a plane without an ID. I've seen this happen. Actually, before me, she somehow is able to maneuver federal laws, Scott Duffy. This is your world, federal laws, and get herself on an airplane without an ID. Because we get to the airport, and 5 out of 10 times she will not have her license. It's I've asked her friends this many times. It'll never change. Carmela Corleone, my friend from Toronto. Look at that. That's her cat, Phil Waters. That is her actual cat. And the name of the cat is Carmela Corleone. It is a hairless, is it a Sphinx, lynx? It's one of these types of cats, but it's a big cat that you can walk, and it's completely bald with giant blue eyes. So it's kind of crazy. I, by the way, am just so curious to see if the COE figures this out or finds her charger before any of this. But anyway, I've asked her friends. It's never changing. I actually it's kind of endearing. And that's it. That's life with the COE. Scott Duffy, this next part, I'm just going to start to move through this here, but this stuff really fascinates me. So this, he kind of had this checklist, Scott Duffy, and everything was in all caps, this checklist. And it was literally titled tasks to complete before, during, and after the killings. There was a header that said practical lessons for next time. And amongst the things that he would have on his checklist was clean bodies, destroy evidence, get sleep before the hunt, have the story set. Another set of things he would have were use heavier rope and limit noise to maximize playtime. Yes, you heard that right. Use heavier rope and limit noise to maximize playtime. I mean, this takes you into his mind, and it's scary in there. What do you see when you go in there, Scott, with this checklist of things about how to be a better murderer?
Yeah. So like I said, the imagination is an amazing thing. And so to hone it and to put it on paper, this says a lot about the individual. This says a lot about the killing, the fact that the killing has become so methodical. It's as second nature to putting together a shopping list, to go to the grocery store, pick up the things, and come back home and not have to say, oh, I wish I wrote down get bread. Okay, let me go get back out and get bread. So this is a great for law enforcement, great for the prosecution, but it absolutely will be a test, as Phil had indicated before, with regards to people like this who ultimately will sit down with a bunch of professionals and be able to go through what it is from A to Z, tell us where there are other bodies, tell us this and that, and let's study you and figure out, are there other people like you, right? That's how a profile is developed, because there are like-minded people who have learned from other acts of violence that people have done. And so this is it's disturbing because of the detail and the horror with regards to the crimes, and the fact that it is not going to a grocery store with the list of items to get. It is terrorizing and victimizing the most vulnerable of our population with regards to people who have gone out and for whatever reason have led these lives and have been subjected to people like this who have been preyed upon, murdered, but by all means not forgotten. And so I'm glad to see their names on, and I hope their families um, will find the justice that is so needed here. But wow, yes, it. I'm not surprised, but I am elated that things like this are being found, and it just continues to bolster these past studies who have been, since the early 70s of our behavioral science unit and like-minded experts who study this for a living and hopefully try to do something to prevent it, because it is like any crime. Our job is to deter it, right? And so hopefully all this we can learn for future generations to identify and deter.
Karma was getting the better of me because I looked down and the charger on my computer was like a little out of joint, so it wasn't charging. This is my beloved daughter, the smart, highly intelligent, beautiful Vita Aaliyah Waldman. Mommy said she's turning on her computer. Thank you for the update. There we go. She's back. We are no longer looking at a black hole, but we're looking at now at Rex's victims here. There are 6 COE. I was just explaining to Scott how I once saw you talk your way onto a flight. Been a lot of interesting flights with the COE. I think once while she was pregnant, there was almost an emergency landing because she wasn't feeling well. So, the 186 people on board almost had to stop in Chicago or somewhere in the middle of the country. I do remember that. Hope ate fear, wishing Vita a happy birthday. There was a phrase here that a couple people pointed out. Vita, close your ears for this, but Phil Waters on his prep checklist here was a body prep checklist. Among other items, he left a note for himself here to remove head and hands. But when he was talking about this heavier rope, Phil, and limiting noise, he said, and this is a direct quote, was to maximize playtime. Phil, that's not exactly how you or I would put it, but in his mind's eye, this is really the way it was. I mean, is it such a thrill that this is how he literally perceives it? That it's, I mean, in other words, is he just completely oblivious to the fact of what's really the crime that's really being committed here? Is this just so pleasurable for him that he has no idea what's really being done?
Oh, no, he's not oblivious to anything. And words have meaning, especially in the context of an investigation like this. When he talks about playtime, that's when he is in the middle of the act itself. And so I don't find any of this to be strange or surprising at all, not for an individual like this. I think it's interesting to get into his head by virtue of his own words and his own writing. So you're getting a glimpse of the life this guy was living, of this double life he was living. And I find it, and I'm sure Scott does too. I mean, it's very interesting to us as detectives, as investigators, because this is what I'm talking about regarding what I've said before countless times, is this psychological autopsy that's done on a person like this, that's a suspect in a series of serial murders. So I find it to be revealing. I find it to be somewhat fascinating, in that we're getting into the mind of this particular suspect and understanding what he was doing. It's like I've said before, this is what he thinks about every minute of every day. This is what first pops into his head when he wakes up in the morning. It's what is in his brain when he goes to sleep. So it's fascinating stuff, I think. And again, I'll echo Scott's comments about kudos to the detectives that are unearthing all this stuff. They're going back and they're continuing to dig, and they are finding all manner of probative evidence, and they're just putting the pieces in the puzzle. And who knows, but at the end of this thing, we may have all the pieces. That's what I'm hoping for, that we get more people identified, more of these victims identified, so that their families can have some kind of answer to what happened to their loved ones. And as horrific as this is, I tell you, there is something to bringing that to an end, to having that question answered for these families and friends that are going to be affected by what happened to their loved ones. So, keep going, guys. Keep digging.
Yeah, and they are. Look at this, Lana Carnathan. You are very rude and disrespectful of the COE. You need to look at yourself. You need to look at yourself in the mirror and reevaluate your contributions to your partnership. Wake up, buddy. You're right. No denying that. Listen, I'd be nothing without the COE. She's smarter, prettier. She's quick. I'm slow. She runs.
Okay, Joel. Now you're doing exactly what I told you not to do.
The Phil Waters. Yes.
If these look, and with all due respect to Lana, if these folks don't understand the relationship between you and Ileana, and you and your mother, because you get the same types of comments about you and your mom.
I do. I think I deserve them, Phil. I'm starting to think.
No, I know what. Look. I appreciate it because I had much the same type of relationship with my mother, and my wife and I'm very self-effacing with her. But I make the same kind of comments. Of course, then she can turn around. She stands on her own. She turns around, and she gives as good as I give her. So they need to have a sense of humor and lighten up, Francis. I mean, come on.
Lighten up, Francis. I love it. Betty Major says, now I was trying to suck up. Yeah, it's true. COE does keep me together. Look at this. Look at this. Our newest friend, Scott and I went to a Phillies game with PSS. Hi, friends. Hello to my new friend, Scott. What about me? Hello to my new friend, Scott. What am I, Swiss cheese? Totally forgot about the show, but happy to make it. Whatever is left. Miss my ST. She forgot about the show. She forgot about me. Karma's still asking about you, PSS. Let me tell you, Scott Duffy, when we were talking to PSS, she does shoulder replacements, and the giddiness that she had in talking about ripping shoulders out of sockets, like it was slightly pathological in nature. She gets a real joy out of ripping shoulders and replacing them out of sockets and joints. I don't know that Scott Duffy, do you think you could tear a shoulder out of a human body and then put a new one in? You think you have it in you?
No.
Yeah. No. PSS says we were already friends. She's in damage control. And then she says, what's up to my boo Carm? All right. So one couple final things here with Jessica Taylor. He even went so far as to mutilate a tattoo on her body, on her person, to try to remove it from evidence. It didn't work well. In all these instances, by the way, they did compare phone records. I guess they are checking on Asa Ellerup, the wife of Rex Heuermann. She was out of town, so they're tracing phone records. I don't know how the hell you do. I mean, Scott Duffy, can you go back and check phones from 1993? I mean, that's pre-cell phone. Who are you calling there? Are you calling Bell Telephone to ask for records? How do you find that?
Can you check for phone records? Is that
Here's the call log. Look at it. The CO.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying going back to 1993, but these are
Sure.
part of what helped catch him are these phone logs here. I
Yeah.
don't know exactly what this is, but the COE, and you can see up at the top, the account name is RH Consultants. Rex was an architect, but you can go back, Scott Duffy, to 1993 with the phones.
Sure.
Yeah. So the nice thing about the earlier days of cell phones is it was all, you're looking at records, and records are held for a significant time. It is, from what I've gathered in my short, where technology really took off towards the end of my career, that the towers, they are so full of information that the clock is ticking before that, so you can gather that data, because there's so much. But in the days of good old fashioned records, these are held. These are absolutely held, and can be got as long as there's still a company that holds them. So,
and someone here is saying that Rex was such a hoarder that they wouldn't be surprised if he had his own phone records. There's one, and here's another from Cat's Pajamas. The way Rex Heuermann kept everything, I wouldn't doubt he had his cell phone bill too.
And we did that too. Like in our search warrants, Joel, that I would go in there and I would specifically look for credit card bills, bank statements, and things like that. No, it would also make the attempt to get them through the companies, but I would rather have them in my suspect's house. It would save me a little bit of time. It'd also give me a few clues to pursue other avenues. But I enjoyed, especially in the early days when everybody got a bill mailed and wouldn't toss it, I would absolutely take it.
By the way, there's I was talking to Ann Burgess, the legend, the literal legend at CrimeCon, and she's probably coming on the show this week or next, because she's amazing. She's 3 years older than Carm. She introduced us at our Boston book signing. Then I see her in Nashville, and this weekend she's in New York City for the Tribeca Film Festival, because Dakota Fanning and her sister, the actresses, have a new docuseries that is about Ann Burgess's life that's coming out on Hulu, I think next week. So she's going to come on, and I think Dakota Fanning may come on as well. And she is literally a legend. She's been working on figuring these people out her entire life. One of the last things that is really interesting, and then we'll pose this question to Phil, and then we'll wrap this part of it up. They found Rex had retired FBI profiler John Douglas, a very famous profiler, book that he wrote called The Cases That Haunt Us, as well as Mindhunter. Both of those books were in Rex's family and his possession. So that's just kind of crazy, Phil, because that's basically an acknowledgement, in my opinion, that he considered himself to be one of these serial killers, which he now is, I think. Afton Ferred here, is anyone else wondering, this is a question for Phil, why he mentioned destroying photos, which apparently he did, yet he kept all those electronics and hotel keys? People always seem to get caught, Phil. You can destroy certain things, but especially with digital forensics. But why, in your opinion, would he maybe discard some things but not others that ultimately get him caught in this mess of a mess?
Well, the physical pictures that he's destroying, it's kind of a weird dichotomy, I guess, because he keeps the digital figures, but he tears up the physical pictures. perhaps in his own. So I wonder does he have the pictures that he tore up? Are they now on the computer somewhere in a file as a digital photograph, or did he just eliminate those? I would find it a little strange if he tore up pictures without transferring them to the digital file. I think he did that, and then and I'm speculating here, but it would make sense to me that, okay, well, I've got these pictures now. I don't need to keep these. Because good grief, if they find these, in his mind, this is more damaging than if they find them on a computer, of which I can wipe out, presumably. So that may just been a matter of convenience. And then he keeps the hotel keys because those are souvenirs to each one of these events, to each one of these victims. And we've talked about it before. So you go in and you reminisce. And I am sure that in his depraved mind that he can pick up that key, whatever key that is, and he will know what victims are associated with that particular key. And then he can relive whatever happened that's associated with that key. So I don't find it odd of some of the things that he's keeping and some of the stuff that he's destroying. I think that the picture thing is like, look, this is something I can hold in my hand, but it's just not the same. There's a degree of separation when you see it on a laptop.
Yeah, so many comments. Lorna McKenzie, I agree with you. This was a phenomenal show. If you haven't seen it, on Netflix, based on the book, it was canceled after season 2. So moving on to other strange stories of the week here. Lisk, the accused Long Island serial killer. Let's hope that we're back to a black hole here, but it's pretty to look at. Just pretend that is outer space, and that's the galaxy. It's infinite. You can see whatever. Oh, there.
Well, I think that would be. I think we're getting a glimpse, and I don't know if this is intentional, but I think we're getting the glimpse into the mind of the serial killer that we're talking about.
I think you're right, Phil Waters. I'm sure I've asked you this before, but this is a spectacular universe. This goes on for eternity. It's said to be infinite. Phil Waters, do you believe that hundreds of millions of miles away there could be other life forms in this never-ending universe of planets and galaxies? What is your thought on that?
Well, I haven't given it much thought, but I think anything is possible.
What about the fact that the universe is just infinite, Phil Waters? Do you ever ponder the amazing? We're just so infinitesimal here. We are little specks of nothingness. We're not even a grain of. The Earth is not even a grain of sand compared to the infinite universe. Do you ever think of how daunting that is?
I don't think about how daunting it is, but every night I go out and look up into this sky over where we are, and it is impossible for me to comprehend what an amazing universe that our Creator has provided. So I'm amazed by it every night when I walk out there.
Yeah, it's unreal. It really is. Look at this. Mindhunters has been picked up for a 3rd season, ? Thought I read this somewhere. By the way, one of my other favorite shows, which is not a typical show that I would like ever, but I absolutely love White Lotus, and I'm waiting for season 3 of that. Catherine, not far from you, Phil in Maui. Really, Co? How could you possibly be busy with 3 kids, 2 dogs, and a Joel? Cindy adds, and a partridge in a pear tree. Read the book of Genesis. God was very specific what he created. On to Giovanni Pikachu. Nice transitions Joel. This person was very specific. Scott, I want to see if this surprises you. We were just talking about the way Rex Heuermann would dismember bodies. Well, he's not the only one. There's a guy named Clint Barrett Brower. He pleaded guilty, I should say, unusual, to first-degree murder in the 2020 killing of 41-year-old Micah Harrington. What was interesting about this is he thought this guy was threatening him. Clint Barrett Brower thought that Micah was threatening him. So he pulls out a giant knife. None of this probably surprises you. They're at an RV park in Mississippi. He feels threatened. So he then attacks Micah Harrington and stabs him many, many times. And ultimately, he dismembers him, Scott Duffy. But then he did not know this guy, and some of this is caught on surveillance video, but he then took this body that was dismembered to a nearby casino and was asking to have it put back together, to have the body put back. It's a Friday. Scott Duffy, does this surprise you that someone would mutilate, murder somebody, dismember them, but then go to the local casino to ask for help in putting the body back together? His attorney, by the way, said that this just shows that he suffered from such severe mental illness that, he was basically out of his mind that when he did this. The prosecutor said the guy deserves what he's going to get. But Scott, does it surprise you that a person who dismembered a body was now asking, of all places, at a casino for help? You could have gone to a hospital. That might have been a better stop, to a surgeon. PSS might have been able to help with this. But what about the fact that he went to a casino to ask for this help?
First, I wish I was the detective on the case, because I would say the case is wrapped up day one. Would you agree, Phil? That would be a great first. If you're a homicide detective and that's your first homicide, it would be good for the detective to win that case.
Yeah.
Going to a casino is a great thing because there's plenty of cameras. There's cameras everywhere. So just to further embolden that case. And so it's good for the murderer for doing what he did to get caught and to try to undo the undoable.
Scott, I have a vision here. By the way, the Black Widower from the Great Republic of Ireland. By the way, I was in Tallahassee and I overheard some cute little kids talking about how they were on their way to Ireland. So you have some cute kids from Tallahassee visiting your beautiful country, Black Widower. She has me saying Witter instead of Widor. Abby Taha, Phil's adopted daughter here, wants to know if there's a magician. But Scott, let's just put you're at a blackjack table in Mississippi at a casino. And this man comes up and opens a bag, and there is an arm and a torso, and they're separated. And he says, "Can you help me put this back together?" Would you be surprised at that point? If you're playing your hand of blackjack, would that surprise you? Would you just say to him, "No, I can't help you put it back together," and then just go, "Deal me another card"?
Yeah. Would it surprise me then, as just a card player? Would I be surprised? I don't know. I think I don't think I've gone to casinos. I see plenty of people who I don't think would be fazed by anything, especially if you're disturbing them at the card table.
Yeah,
they're pretty focused people.
By the way, this is the part of the show where Carmel said,
What city was this in?
I think it was outside of Biloxi, Mississippi, I believe. But
so this casino is on I'm going to assume is on some sort of Indian reservation.
It might. I don't know how they work in Mississippi, but it very well could be.
So I'd be curious to know. Well, I know that the Cherokee Nation, we have, well, all of them in Oklahoma have casinos. The Indian tribes in Louisiana have casinos. But what I'm getting at is I'm curious to know what the victim was in terms of that possible connection to a tribe of some kind. And I think Abby even talked about it, but, I mean, they have entertainment of all sorts of things there in those casinos.
By the way, this is a first. My sister is FaceTiming me. I don't think she's ever done this. Let me take this for a second, Phil. We'll introduce my sister.
Well, perhaps what I'm getting at is perhaps Shin Lin was on that.
Well, Arden, we're live podcasting to the world, and you're FaceTiming the whole world right now. So anything to say about your brother's podcast? You're live on air right now. She just said she finished my book. It took her like 6 months, but she finally finished the book. No one respects me in my family. People think I'm just a complete loser. They just know. Her husband is a cardiologist. He has a real job. But with me, like they want to wish Vita a happy birthday. She's with my wife, and I'm in the middle of a podcast. See, I'm in the studio. Mom is not in the studio with me. No, she's not. All right. Nice talking. That was my sister. Her name is Arden, as in Elizabeth Arden. It's first time ever. I don't have my phone. So there you go. We'll have to call her later, I guess. Joel, you must be in trouble if your sister. She's my older sister. We could not be. I love my sister to death. She's the sweetest person you will ever meet. Not a bad bone in her body. Not saying that I do, but my sister, I don't think she's ever had a sip of alcohol. She never ponders. I wake up every minute of my life saying, what is my purpose? What am I doing here? Should I move to Ireland? Question everything. My sister, like the COE, they just, they live in the moment. I couldn't be more different than my sister. She became a doctor when she went to BU 6-year med, and she became a doctor when she was, I think, 22 years old. She was already a doctor, and she's still a doctor. She has 5 daughters, by the way. The only thing I did better than my sister Arden was I had the only boy grandchild. So, yeah, here it is, COE, letting everybody know. Maybe Arden will become a part of the show. I don't think she's ever cursed in her life. I don't think she's maybe had a drink in her life. She just lives her life. She's like a super mom, always hanging with the kids. But anyway, this next story was close to home, and Scott knows this because I lost my luggage from Toronto to Philadelphia. So this woman, her name is Paula Garcia. She lost her luggage, and she was annoyed. Phil Waters. She had to check her pink hard shell suitcase before her March 3rd flight. They forced her to check it, but she had her computer in there, and she needed it because she's in university. And she had an Apple Watch in that bag. And the airline did what they were doing to me. Mine was Air Canada. Shame on you, Air Canada. But this was, I think, what did I just say? Was it Spirit Airlines? Yeah, Spirit Airlines. So they wouldn't help her get her luggage. And she had an Apple Watch with a location device on there. And it took her to an employee of the airport's home where she found tons of luggage that was being stolen by this employee. And she confronted this person, and this person has since been arrested. But the Broward Sheriff's Office was mad at her and said, you should not investigate. This is Carmela Waldman chiming in now, trying to cheer us up with Rex Heuermann, you mean, or the luggage story? Hello, Carm. The legend has entered the building. Carm, the legend, has entered the building. Phil Waters, I'm curious. Would you be, if you were charge of luggage investigations at HPD and you were onto something, and suddenly this college student goes and confronts this stealer, but she found the goods, would you be upset or be happy for her?
She put all this crap in her luggage?
Yeah, she had an Apple Watch that had like location settings on, so she was able to track her bag because Spirit Airlines would not do it for her. And then she
do that. Was that a purposeful thing on her part?
I think it can just be on. It was supposed to be a carry-on, but they made her check it, which has happened to me, and then she got really annoyed.
Well, my first question would be: is why are you having a watch stuck in your luggage in the first place? So who's the dummy in that picture? Now, in terms of the results, I mean, I don't know. If she was, I might say, hey, good job, but probably not the wisest thing for you to do. But then she may have gone to law enforcement and said, this is where my watch is, and they just don't have the personnel or resources to go track down every, goof that's put their watch in their luggage and then had it stolen. So, I don't know what the whole backstory there is, but I would think if that stuff was revealed and she is shut down, it sounds like a little theft ring within the airport.
Yeah. Ida Shaw, Phil, about you says, Phil is so understanding of people because you're like, why would she have an Apple Watch in her bag? LOL. It was good she had that watch in her suitcase. They found the thief. On a serious note, I mean, this guy's stealing a lot of luggage. She's had a lot to lose. Maybe she put herself in a dangerous situation, but all I know is she got her luggage back probably faster than I got luggage back. The stalkers use them probably. All technology is used for nefarious purposes. Scott Duffy, I wish I had this video. It was one of the funnier things I've seen. There's this guy in Michigan, I want to say Ann Arbor. He had a court hearing for a suspended license, and he zoomed in while he was driving. Did you happen to see this?
I did. Yep.
Yeah, he zoomed in he zoomed into the meeting with the judge, but he was driving, and the judge is like, "What are you doing?" And he rolled.
Yeah,
and he rolled his eyes.
That story's turned out to be a complete disaster.
Yeah,
have you read the latest on it, Scott?
Say that again, Phil.
Have you read the latest on it, Scott?
Yeah, well, now it turns out he never had a license.
He never had a license in the first place.
What, Scott Duffy? Does this surprise you? Canine Catherine says every question I ask is, "Does this surprise you?" Turns out he never had a license in the first place. The video has to be one of the funniest videos I've ever. Just his facial expressions, looks like a nice guy. Scott Duffy, does it surprise you that he never had a license? It wasn't just suspended. And then they went into the law about whether someone without a license could have a suspended license. And in some states, it's possible. You can, even if you don't have a license, it can be suspended.
Oh my God.
Yes, that's true. And so I've been in that.
Is this shocking to you? Is this shocking?
It's not shocking. It's not. And as a police officer, if you issue it's kind of weird. You can suspend a license with somebody not having a license, right? And then if they apply for a license, it's suspended, and then they have to go through it's weird. I don't like it, but
wow, look at this.
That is a perfect example about the wonderful efficiency with which our government agencies work.
Correct.
Yeah, look at this. Brick K, you should not have told me this. Carm, I'm 100% spending money on this one. They're selling pictures of his face on Zoom from his car on Etsy mugs. Britt K, can you tell me what I have to search on Etsy to find that? Because I'm buying one immediately. By the way, Carm, I gave you a shirt from CrimeCon that says "Stay Suspicious" with a card. Now I can't remember if I gave it to you, but I think I did. Phil Waters, this next one has your name written all over it. The headline is titled "Hair Today, Gone Tomorrow." The NYPD is now going back to its clean cut ways, banning beards and mustaches just 4 years after it decided to allow them. They are cracking down on sloppily dressed cops. This does not apply to undercover officers or any officers who have been granted religious or medical exemptions. It was detailed in the May 3rd internal order called, this is very creative. The order for May 3rd is called facial hair policy. Very creative at the NYPD. Do you agree with this rule at the NYPD that all officers need to be clean cut and shaven?
Absolutely.
I knew it. And tell us why, Phil.
Look, and I did read this article that did pop up on my radar. Yes, indeed. And I think that is great. They've done the same thing in Houston with allowing this bearded ball cap, shorts, and all this crap. If you want to look like that, then, go be a delivery driver for Domino's. I just believe that if you're going to put on that uniform and wear that badge, you need to look with the higher standard that you are hired under. So you need to look like it's all the definition of professionalism, right? Scott, we talked about this at your symposium. So how do we define that? When you see a police officer for the first time you come in contact with them, you can't make a second first impression. The officer cannot make a second first impression. And I was raised to believe that you should carry yourself in a manner in which you are not, it's not you personally that's being reflected, but it's every law enforcement officer in the country that's being reflected. And you need to look the part. Now, you may turn out to be an idiot and you've got you're not that great at the job necessarily, but you need to at least have that first appearance as being a professional police officer. And people are going to evaluate you that way. They're going to notice, they were talking about that article about how cops in New York were looking sloppy. Well, I can tell you what, in Houston, it's the same thing. And I don't subscribe to it, the showing of tattoos and all that stuff. If you want to look like these people, that wear all that stuff, and I'm not castigating people that wear tattoos, but you've got to separate yourself from that. You're a professional police officer, and you can't roll in there looking like, I'm a biker or I'm a guy that loves tattoos, because that's not what the discussion should be about, and it becomes a distraction for the purpose that you're there for. And so we talked about it, that back in when I was at Scott's symposium, I asked some of those officers in there, I said, how do you define professionalism? And they came up with a variety of different things. The way you look, the way you treat people, the way you talk, the way you exude yourself. How do you become more professional, more education, that kind of thing. So training, and it's very hard to define. And so I used the comparison with the Supreme Court case in 1964, I believe it was, with the Supreme Court trying to define pornography. And one of the justices then, Potter Stewart, made the comment that I may not know what pornography looks like, but I know it when I see it. So I apply that to professionalism. It's the same thing. And more important is people know it when they don't see it. And I just believe that police officers who comport themselves with a uniform, a clean uniform that's put together in the proper way, clean shaven. Now they can have the mustache. That's not a big deal. But the beards and the goatees and all that kind of stuff, I just think that's not the place to be showing that. And, of course, I come in the Marines, same set of standards. So I just think there's something to be gained by maintaining and I'm going to use the word, a professional appearance when you show up at a scene somewhere, because sometimes just that appearance alone is going to make people know that you are in charge. You show up and, I've known guys. I mean, I work with guys. Now that can work backwards as well. The guys that show up look like the poster police officer, and then they open their mouths and turn into an idiot. And then I've seen the guys that show up and they open the car door and all the McDonald's French fry boxes fall out of it and that kind of thing, and they get out and they're wearing on the uniform what they had for dinner that night. But then they open their mouths, and it's amazing the amount of wisdom that comes out of them. So it can cut both ways, but I just believe that we're held to a higher standard in the job that we do, and I think we should be held to a higher standard in the way we appear while we're doing it.
Abby Tahaha, your daughter disagrees. No, facial hair makes them seem more relatable, but I have to say, a lot of people agree with you.
Abby. Sorry, Abby.
A clown dresses up for a reason in a clown outfit. Police officers should dress appropriately for their job. Also, look at this. I agree with Phil. I agree with Phil's. Miss T says, Phil, my dad was a Marine and always. There you go. So a lot of people agreeing with Phil on that one. Two more quick stories. I can't wait to go home. Britt K, let me know where I can get that mug. I need to get that. I might even get one for Carm. I'm looking at his face right here. Hope 8 Fear, great name. Gifting 5 Surviving the Survivor memberships. We love that. So Scott Duffy, I don't know if you remember Anna Delvey. That was the name she went by. She was basically a con artist. There was a big Netflix show. It was a huge hit maybe a year or two ago. She basically talked her way into scamming everyone in the New York, I think it was the real estate world. Well, she, I think, served some time. And look at this, Britt K emailing me as we speak. Thank you so much, Britt K. So long story short, I think she served some time. Anyway, she's back in New York. She's of German citizenship, I want to say. And she was on her way to immigration court, but because she's still on probation, as she stepped out of her SUV, like they all have in New York City, the big black SUV, lo and behold, she's wearing a short dress and high heels, and she had her ankle monitor on, and it was emblazoned with a sparkling A for Anna in gems. And she said that she has no shame, and she's going to turn her ankle monitor into a piece of jewelry. Do you think that this is the beginning of a new fad for people with ankle monitors? Have you thought about this? Do you think that other celebrities will now, let's say Paris Hilton, God forbid, is arrested on, let's say, a minor charge. She's serving probation. Do you now think we'll see a P that is a bespeckled P on her ankle? Are we onto something here? Is Hollywood onto something?
They may be. I don't know what to think about that. So good for her for turning something into something usable. That's good for her.
I love it.
It's a fashion statement.
Yeah. Heidi Moraine says my ankle monitor just has cat hair on it. There you go. A final story today before we wrap things up here. Phil Waters, I couldn't help but think of you. I wanted to get your thoughts about if this person did this to your Ferrari, but a California, people accuse me of doing things for clicks, Phil, but a California YouTuber, he now faces federal charges for his incendiary social media stunt, a fictionalized video game scene of female officers shooting mortar-style fireworks from an attack helicopter above a speeding Lamborghini that's trying to outrun it below on a picturesque dry lake bed at sundown. So what Sukmin Choi did, 24 years old, he goes by Alex Choi, he actually blew up a Lamborghini using fireworks. I think this was in San Bernardino, in that area. He did it off a highway, and he's now facing federal charges. Are people going to too great a length to get clicks? That's number one, Phil. And number two, if someone blew your Ferrari up with fireworks, would they be staring down the barrel of your 45? And that is the final question of the day.
Well, that's not going to happen. They're not going to get that close to the Ferrari to be able to do that. But yeah, and his choosing to blow up a Lamborghini, I can certainly understand that. But what are the federal charges? The fact that he was in a helicopter doing this?
That's a great question.
FAA violation thing, or
the story had me and he blew up a Lambo, but court documents say Choi mentions working with a camera company to shoot the quote unquote craziest 4th of July video. It doesn't say. I don't see the charge. Yeah. Hold on. Oh wait, here we go. Here we go. Here's the information. He had no permit to shoot it using fireworks on a helicopter and had purchased fireworks in Nevada because they were illegal in California. He also had no proof of insurance for this and no pyrotechnician or fire crews on site. Fireworks are banned without a permit on federal land where it was shot. If convicted now, he could face up to 10 years in federal prison.
So really, these are all federal laws about fireworks and permits and that kind of crap, really? And it's his Lambo that he's blowing up?
Yeah, I don't know whose it is.
Well, then who gives a crap? I mean, this is another example. Oh, my gosh, of the government. Really? So... yeah, no fireworks. You can't blow up your own freaking car on federal land. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
He paid for it. He did it. He got the camera crew. He got the helicopter. He blew up his own car. Who gives a crap? So, and I would have to assume that he has enough money that this thing isn't going to make any difference anyway.
Yeah.
So he'll end up paying a fine. And don't be blowing up Lambos and don't be shooting at them from a helicopter anymore. Or we're gonna, whack you 3 times with a 3-sided ruler on your PP. I mean, it's asinine, freaking ridiculous.
No water. The real question here is what do Ferrari owners think of Lambo owners? Do you look down on them? Seriously, do you look down on them?
Well, I mean, maybe in a general sense, they're not Ferraris, but okay. I mean, Lamborghini, the prancing horse actually comes from a stock of racing cars and racers. I mean, that's what Enzo Ferrari did with Alfa Romeo. But, and Lamborghini, on the other hand, built tractors. So come to your own conclusions about that.
So you would.
They're nice cars. No, they're nice cars. Lambos are nice cars,
but if let's say you pulled. By the way, Abby Tahaha wants to know if this guy had a driver's license, unlike our other guy. But Phil Waters, if you pulled up hypothetically at a red light and your red Ferrari next to a red Lambo, would you stick your nose up at that red Lamborghini, being that you're in a red Ferrari? Would you say that my car is better than yours? And would you try to race it?
No. Any of these guys. I mean, I've had guys pull up to me in, Corvette manner of cars, and I give them the Shaka. And yeah, I mean, I like these cars. I like them. I like all of them. I just have a preference for the prancing horse. That's all.
Scott Duffy, you've got kids in this age range. This guy, Alex Choi, is 24 years old. Is our society destroyed? Is our world ruined because of YouTube, because of people like me, and because of Alex Choi? Is the world now that kids can actually get views for blowing up? Used to be a time you couldn't do that. You'd have to be Evel Knievel. You'd have to be on television. But now any Joel, Alex Choi, or other moron could do this stupidity and get views. Is the world destroyed as a result? By the way, happy birthday to Vita from Twyla Olson. Is there no? My final question before my next final question is: should we lose hope, complete hope in society? Because I'm headed there.
So I did see the video. It was a good video.
It was.
Yeah, it was.
What I'm
I
finding
thought
out
I thought I was watching a movie. I think there will be a movie company out there that's going to want to purchase that footage. So probably do well. The pilot of that helicopter did lose his license or her license.
Really?
I don't know. Yeah.
What I'm learning about you two is that you have as much free time as me because you're reading all the idiotic, moronic stories that I read on Fridays, and you know them all. Let's get some final thoughts here. We always start with we always usually end with Phil, but let's I don't know who we end with anyway. Phil, what's your plan? You're in. They want to see Nugget. Is Nugget? He's been barking and yapping, but now he's probably too good to come over here. He's sleeping.
Well, look, it's a she, Joel.
I always say
that. Nugget a he.
I call Fred my own. Yeah. By the way, I need help from STS Nation. Fred is out of control. Number one, follows me everywhere. When I go to the shower, he sits outside the shower door. He's got to lick my toes. But when I'm eating, he won't stop yapping. He just yaps and yaps and yaps. And I just can't take it anymore. And then I have to give him a little something. And I know it's the exact wrong thing to do. And someone said, try a spray bottle. I sprayed him in the face, and he looked at me like I was a moron, and he just kept yapping. Please,
that's all self-inflicted.
It was. What do I do?
You created that monster.
I know, but how do I stop it?
And quit spraying him in the freaking face. Oh my gosh. Just give him
5 months. So Phil, what do I do? He won't stop. What do I do? He won't stop yapping. I try to smack him in the nose.
Well, instead of smacking him in the nose and spraying him in the face, give him a little piece of food. Because that's what you started doing. That's what you started doing, and that's what he's used to.
Yeah, so what do I do? Just not give him anything and let him yap away?
Well, that's up to you.
What would you do, Phil? Let me rephrase it. What would you do, Phil, if your puppy was yapping nonstop?
Well, I want to find out what the problem is, of course. I mean, there may be something else going on there.
I'll tell you the problem. He's obsessed with food. He can't stop talking about
again, look in the mirror, and that'll give you the idea of where that problem started. Right.
By the way, does Nugget beg for food? Please say yes, so I feel better.
Oh yeah, of course she does. But she doesn't have to beg much. She just sits there on the floor, and then her ears are up, and she just stares at me. And then if I don't pay attention quick enough, then she will get up on my leg and she will start doing this. So, and sometimes she'll do a little squeak. She kind of squeaks.
You ever give her
she kind of squeaks.
I do this. I give like a little finger to the nose, and she doesn't give a crap. Carla says, "Do not." I don't smack him really. I give him like a little love tap to just be quiet. He just looks. I need Caesar Milan. You're right. This is what I do need. Phil, your parting words before Scott's parting words tonight.
Oh my gosh.
And as we say, look at this. This is Vita, Aaliyah, my beautiful.
Oh, yeah, there's beautiful Vita. Happy birthday, Vita.
Double digits. You are the family COE. You have the biggest heart, and we adore you for just being you. And there we are. There we are. There's
she's 10 today, right?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
By the way, Phil always has the best advice, according to Deb. So, Phil Waters, your final thoughts today as we leave this beautiful show behind. Bonnie Lee Lopez, look at this comment. I'm so glad I fell asleep and missed most of this. You're lucky, Bonnie.
Yeah, they'll go back and replay it, though. No. As always, it's always good to get together here on Friday and go over some of these cases that are going out that are affecting a lot of people. and I think we are reminded. We talked about it. I think last week or maybe the week before, but I think we're reminded, and especially in the case like the one we've talked about today, is that these victims out here, they were someone to somebody else, and they mattered. And regardless of what their circumstances were, whether they were involved in a high risk lifestyle, and that comes in many forms, but they are not to blame for what happened to them. And the only person that we blame in this thing is the person that committed those horrific acts. And it's my prayer that he's going to be held accountable for all of these folks. I hope that every person he's harmed, everyone he's taken a life from, I hope and pray they get identified so those families can have some peace about what happened to their loved ones. So I think, if nothing else, that we're reminded that these folks are important. They're important. And I'll just echo what Scott said. I think that I know that was my attitude. It didn't matter to me where they were in life, race, creed, color, orientation. It mattered not. What was important was to find the right person who's done the wrong thing and bring about a measure of justice for their families and their friends, and with hope that that'll bring some peace to those folks. So that's what I think I would end with, is just we need to keep those victims and their families in our thoughts and prayers. And so with that, I'll be doing what I do on Fridays here on the Big Island. We will have our Bible study tonight in our home, and this year I happen to be the one leading it, and we will be studying the book of Hebrews, which is a great explanation and description of Jesus Christ. So that's what we'll be doing, and then tomorrow night will be pizza night. And we will be looking to another beautiful weekend here. And I would just hope that everybody out there watching, even the haters, that they have a great weekend ahead of them, and that they find something that will bring them some joy.
Beautifully said, Phil. And I'm going to buy this book. Karen Jean is recommending it. Read the book, How to Behave So Your Dog Behaves. I'm going to give whoever wrote that book some more money. Because I'm in a desperate situation. And appreciate it. Look at this. Paula says, Joel, you have a beautiful family. I am a very lucky man, and I have great kids, amazing kids. And there's not a wallflower among them. They've all got big personalities. Scott Duffy, it's Friday. You're at the Jersey Shore, my old neck of the woods. I'm a little jealous. Your plans tonight and your final thoughts as we leave here on this weekend, where we discussed some heavy subjects, but now it is time for everyone to lighten the load and just sort of enjoy themselves. For that, Scott, will that include hitting the bar tonight, maybe? But you tell me what's on tap for tonight and your final thoughts here, Scott.
Yeah, so I have my youngest with me. And so we're going to pal around, go find some good eats. The Jersey Shore has plenty of it. So we'll figure out between Wildwood and Cape May. And happy birthday. You're a decade, Vita. I like it's better. It's much more mature, a decade old. Happy birthday to my niece, Kateri. She is a birthday girl today.
What's her name? Kiri?
Kateri. We call it Kiri, but Kateri.
That's a beautiful name.
Yeah.
How do you spell Kateri?
You put me on the spot. I think it's Keteri. I think
it's
so.
Your niece. I would advise asking, Scott. Yeah. I'm going to ask you next week. I need to know the proper spelling. I'm very visual, but I like that name.
Yeah, I think it's that.
How old is your youngest?
17. So we're
Wow.
palling around for a few days, and so that's that. It's going to be it's another nice Jersey Shore night. And I just want to say to all those I met last weekend, who came up to the booth to see you, Joel, and your COE wife.
A lot came
What
to
a
see you,
fantastic
Scott.
crew. I just want to say thank you to everybody who said hello to me, who ate, drank with me, and palled around with me. That it was a great time in Nashville, and I'm very, very, I'm ashamed to say it, but I didn't get out to see Nashville for what Nashville is. So we'll have to return.
There's always another time for that, but it was amazing to see Scott Duffy. And I told Scott at next year's Crime Con, I have an idea and I'm going to pitch it for me, Scott, and Phil, combining media and law enforcement for a talk that Crime Con will not be able to deny. We will have hundreds of thousands of people in the audience, live and around the world. So that will be in Denver 2025. We cannot be denied, just like the Super Bowl halftime show. Thanks to these wonderful guests. Thanks to the COE. Thanks to Space Coast on the West Coast. Thanks to our mods. And thanks to my beautiful kids, Z-Bugs, Vita, Judah, and of course today, Vita, who is turning 10 years old tomorrow. We love you all. Till then.